Hello, I've got Peter-Billingham, founder of Death Goes Digital, on the line with us here today. Hi, Peter, how are you doing?
Hello, Mike. How are you doing? Welcome to this conversation from England. Hey, what technology, it can do anything, can't it?
It can, and you know what? That is so awesome that we're able to connect. You're in England, I'm in Canada, and we're able to share some great ideas back and forth.
Yeah, definitely. Good to chat with you.
So, Peter, I know basically one of the biggest things that you provide to the funeral profession is, helping funeral directors with their lack of knowledge of technology. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. It's interesting to see these days that perhaps the funeral industry is probably one of the last major industries that isn't really yet fully embracing digital technology as much as it can do. And I think it's been driven to do that, more kicking and screaming, I think, because that's what the consumer is demanding these days.
I agree with you 100%. I find that, there are some funeral homes that are up to speed on what's happening, but the majority of funeral homes, which are run by typically the mom and pop shops, are still behind the times. And I'm going to assume that, in your marketplace, which is the UK, and our market here in the North America, it's exactly the same. They both are struggling now. So what's one of the first suggestions that you can make or suggest to a funeral home that is behind the times a little bit? What would be something that they should look at changing sooner than later?
Well, I think that one is just to understand that where you've got business from in the past as maybe a second or third generation family business was based around trust and reputation in a community. And you're still going to get some business that way. There's no doubt about it. But for the majority of younger people who obviously are going to be arranging funerals for parents or even grandparents, the first thing that they're going to do, like most people do with everything, is they've got a mobile, they're connected to their hand, and they're going to type in funeral home wherever they live, or how do I organise a funeral? And unless that funeral home is taking steps to make sure that they appear in Google rankings and they get up the charts of Google, they're not going to get that business. And eventually what will happen is that they will lose business to these other firms who are doing that.
So that's a really good suggestion. So what you're saying there is that you want to be able to make sure that you're getting better Google rankings, making sure that you target search queries. A lot of times when I talk to funeral homes, they'll say, oh, I rank number one. Yes, for your funeral home name, but what about what really people are searching for? And that's a big challenge for sure.
Yeah. I think that's true because I think what the problem here is a couple of things. One, it's fear. That, well, we've never done it this way. We've been in business for 60, 70 years and we've survived, and we've maybe not just survived, but prospered because we've used directories, we've used local yellow pages, we've got a good reputation in our community. We don't really need to do this. We're okay. And I think the one thing behind that is lack of understanding, maybe fear to bring in change. And that's understandable, really, Mike. I mean, that's the case. But you only have to look around, and this is what I've been trying to explain to funeral directors here in England, is if you just look into other marketplaces at the changes that are taking place, and then ask yourself, why wouldn't that happen in the funeral industry? For example, let me just give you a couple of examples. Just take, for instance, Uber. Uber has grown from nothing to this massive organisation worth billions of dollars, and they don't own a car. They just actually give people the opportunity to get the results that they want using other sources. You've got Airbnb, exactly the same. They've grown from absolutely nothing, and it's just a marketplace where now people can either utilise their own houses or rent somebody else's house. And that's considered normal now. It's not unusual. And so, although it might seem strange, the funeral industry is going to face those same technological revolutions, whether they like it or not, or whether they adapt to it. then other companies will come in and take that market if they don't. And that's why it's critical that when you type in maybe a town, or you type in an area and organise a funeral, or where can I find a funeral home, that ranking in Google comes up. Because if it doesn't, they're not going to go to page 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you're not on that first page, really, you're going to be losing that business to the ones who are.
I agree with you 100% there. Basically, the top 5 rankings is the primary place to be. You want to be in the top 5. I've had a couple people joke with me that the first is not the best place, because people skip over the first, assuming you paid. But number 2 and 3 are your primary locations where you want to be. Through social media, though, you can actually take over the first page and have the top 5 listings be all of you through your different channels. So lots of opportunity. Now, where do you see, Peter? Because we're talking about, younger generation consumers that are going to be, as you said, making arrangements for their parents or their grandparents. Do you think that they're going to turn to the internet, not just to do research and educate themselves, but actually fulfill arrangements?
Without a shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt. And why I see that happening is that culture is going that way. I think if a funeral home hasn't got a website that is optimized for mobile, for one thing, they're going to have a problem, because something like, I don't know, a huge percentage, 60, 70% of all web searches now are done on mobile phones. So one thing is that you only have to look around, sit on a train, in any restaurant, any cafe, wherever you go. What is everybody doing? They're hunched over their mobile phone. So sadly, when a member of the family dies, it's not that far of a stretch for them to start researching the information straight away on that mobile phone. So they will be doing that. And I also think what I've seen is that there is a greater, I don't know whether it's an acceptance, Mike, but in culture you're seeing the rise of like live streaming funerals. It seems in the world, this year there's been quite a few like celebrity deaths, and immediately what you're seeing is that they're live streaming the funerals, and young people are looking at that, and it doesn't seem unusual. There's this whole thing about funeral selfies, which maybe for some people they think, what on earth, people are taking pictures at funerals and posting them. Well, yes, because that's you share your life on Facebook. So where a funeral home actually is sort of, probably people are thinking this is not the place for social media. Actually, it is, because that gets huge exposure. Online obituaries, the amount of like memorialization sites that are being set up, where people can upload photos and videos and even audio and whatever. That's right into what the generation that are probably going to be organising the funerals are used to. So if a funeral home isn't sort of actively, not passively, but actively working in these marketplaces, although it might not happen tomorrow, although it might not happen next year, but it won't be long before they'll start to see huge percentages of their profits and business going to the funeral homes that are much more savvy.
Yeah, I agree with you there. That and that's why we always say to funeral homes, you don't have to make the change tomorrow, but be prepared, be educated. And that's where the funeral service associations have tried to step up with their guest speaking, is to educate everybody. And again, the younger generation funeral directors, they get it, they grasp it.
One of the things I would say, Mike, the challenges that I see here in the UK is that people are spending a lot of money on local newspaper advertising. And in the town where I live, every week you can see 4 or 5 different funeral homes, and they're spending in dollars, probably $1,000, maybe $1,500 a month to put their advert in the local newspaper every single week. And I say to them, why are you putting that advert in? And they say, because Fred down the road is putting his advert in. And if I don't put my advert in, then people are going to see him. And I'm saying, well, if you paid just a proportion of that and you paid it to somebody who can actively work on your behalf on the internet, instead of paying that every month, you could be paying a fraction of that, and it'll be working for you 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
You can measure how effective that money is. I say to them, tell me, how many people have you got from that advert in the last year? And they don't know. They haven't got a clue how many people that they've spent probably $15,000, but they don't know how much business has brought it in. It's just, well, we've always put an advert in the newspaper. Well, the advantage with working with online marketing is, yeah, you got to pay because it's part of the process. You got to get your business out there, but you can directly measure how effective that is for a fraction of the cost. And so it is a challenge because a lot of funeral directors have never done it before, and it's like, well, why should we change? Well, if you don't change, you're going to be out. There's no doubt about it, and it won't be overnight. But you want to pass this generation, you want to pass your business on to the next generation, well, you've got to get internet savvy, because if you don't, you're going to have nothing to pass on to your next generation.
Mm. It's an interesting point about the print advertising versus digital advertising. The idea here in North America, we're seeing less circulation of newspapers because, again, the population as a whole is not buying the newspapers, and so those channels are changing drastically, and funeral homes are having to say, okay, what do I change? Where do I go to? And the biggest one we have here is called Yellow Pages, and it's, as you said, about $1,000, $1,200, $1,500 a month to run that ad. And a lot of funeral homes are now saying, what do I get out of that, and where can I spend my money? And I always suggest yellowpages.com is definitely something to stay with because of the link back to their website, the juice that they get from it. But I think there's a big change, a big transition between print versus digital for sure.
Definitely, yeah, and it'll just increase. You can see, the readership of newspapers has just gone down. And the other thing is, I recently wrote that book, Death Goes Digital, and it was actually talking about how a funeral director should use LinkedIn. One of the things that they should do is use LinkedIn to build reputation online, because it's 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's working for you. And actually, you do need to spend some money with developing social media and with SEO, but there are a lot of things that you can do that don't cost you any money. They cost time. They're not free. They do cost time because you've got to put some effort in. But you bring all those things together in a proper strategy with somebody who can help you do that, and then you've got a real effective marketing campaign that's working for you 24 hours a day.
Exactly. That's perfect. Well, Peter, I appreciate you spending some time with me this afternoon. I know it's a little later for you, probably dinner hour. I do appreciate, again, Peter-Billingham, Death Goes Digital, author of the book, Death Goes Digital, all about LinkedIn and the strategy behind that. Any closing words, Peter?
Mike, I didn't quite catch that last question. I'm sorry. I think the internet just clicked out a little bit.
No worries. Technology for you. Do you have any final sentiments to share before we leave?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, no problem at all. One is that the first thing is, don't be afraid of it, because this change is here. It's not as if it's on its way. It's here. And to take small steps forwards. You can't just suddenly change everything. And the process of moving what I call from being an analog funeral home to being a digital one isn't something you can do overnight. You start the process and you build on it, and you start maybe with your website. Make sure that it's optimized for mobile, and make sure that the SEO on that website is optimized for a whole range of different keywords, and then start to maybe work on your social media, and then start to build on some content marketing. And this might be an 18-month strategy. Look, you've got time to do that, but if you don't do it and you try to do it in 18 months from now, well, you're gonna be behind the times. So that would be my final words. Don't wait. Start doing something, even if it's just small steps now. Move in that direction.
Perfect, and amazing advice, and great advice for sure. As Peter said, don't wait on starting your strategy. Start your strategy sooner than later, because if you don't start your strategy, your competitor definitely is starting his. Thank you, Peter, and have a good day.
Yeah, Mike, it's been great chatting with you, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you, sir. you.